Welcome to Scramble Game Show. Well, my audience, this game show has been dormant for a few months because we've been doing interviews and we have been following the election and so on. But now the election is over, we should really get back to the games. Now, before we get to the game and inviting kids or others to come on the show to play, we really want to do a little bit review of the games. Why? Because recently, a good news to me is that I finally received a U.S. patent. Okay, you can see the U.S. patent comes with a nice gold-colored seal that states that a patent rights is granted to me. Now, usually when you apply for a patent, you need to hire a patent attorney because the language, the process, so on, are fairly specific, and usually the professional patent attorney is more efficient and capable to do patent application. Now, when I started applying for patents, the game wasn't my first choice. My profession is in the technology, and I had started working on several internet-related technology work before actually many people got into it. I worked on the search engine way before Google, and we had a search engine called Medical World Search, which actually was cited by Wall Street Journal back in, I don't know, probably year 2000 or so. And I also worked on the internet telephony, and internet telephony now is quite common now, and people use Skype, for example. The first technology when I worked on was try to allow people to make a phone call from a computer to an ordinary phone. Ordinary phone means any phone at home or a cell phone that can be dialed from a computer. That was also back in the early 2000 that I worked on. Now, at those times, and I have also started to apply for a patent on those technologies. So the search engine, the internet telephony, and I also worked on some e-commerce work and so forth. So that all began sort of at 1999 to year 2000. It's a very good time at that time. However, it was at the tail of a good time. And I did get some Silicon Valley support and throw me some money and so forth, so we started. But then soon, get into year 2000, the dot-com crash came. And that's when Silicon Valley collapsed and all the ventures sort of faded away. And the work we are doing begun to have problems because the money supply turned into attorneys rather than people just writing us check. The reason they turn into attorneys is because they want to somehow minimize their commitment for funds. They want us to go to Silicon Valley to use the empty buildings, empty offices that it's in, Mountain View or other places. So I must say that was a time that I went through a very sort of big gyration of fortune and misfortune and luck and unlucky in that period of time, even though our work was quite well progressed, and our search engine actually had more than a couple of thousand users all over the world willing to pay a fee as a member fee to use the search engine. So we were the first search engine, yet we were paid search engine. Just imagine if we didn't have the .com collapse and we continued on in that work, perhaps we could at least get a small lion's share out of the Google's pie. But anyway, those are the times that was kind of fun. But let's get back to the patent issue. So for those type of work, I apply for patent and so on. And being a sort of a small company entrepreneuring, we just couldn't afford to have patent attorneys say $50,000 a pop, okay? Because each patent at those days average out $50,000 to get a patent application, whether you get it or not. Even you failed, it costs you $50,000. So I started writing my own patent, okay? So from year 2000 to 2004, 5, 6, I have been fairly actively writing my own patent. Now, the game was a patent I also applied or wrote right after the .com collapse, because when .com collapsed, as I said, all the technology venture capital funds ran away. So I was holding a company with some postdocs and students and so on and engineers. It's not easy to maintain. Eventually, I had to let people really, go find jobs. Some went to Wall Street, and that's the only place seemed to have jobs. So by holding on to these ideas, the work we did and so forth, and by applying patent, it's the only sort of a last resort. So at that time, I also thought about this game, which I created back in the 80s, okay, for fun. And it was, really in existence for almost 10 years before I actually thought about it again. So while I was submitting patents, I thought about this. I wrote a patent application for the game called Scramble, okay? And that's the basis for this patent. And the patent was filed on December 30, 2002. You probably think I'm crazy. What are you doing on December 30 writing patents? Well, as I said, those times I had a really, a kind of a crushed mode. All my work had to be halted and so on. So even though it's before New Year, it's supposed to be party time, that I was writing patent. This 2002 December 30 application, it's until today, which is 2013, nearly 11 years, I got this patent. All my other technical patents, some are actually much earlier, and some took maybe 6 years, 5 years. This 11 years almost. It's a very, very long time. Now, partly because, of course, I am not a professional patent attorney, so the cycle of sort of interaction and change between patent office and myself, it's sort of taking on the maximum inner loop, which means every 3 months you engage and so forth. It does slow down the process. Secondly, of course, without formally trained as a patent attorney, the language aspect of patent, writing patent language, it's foreign to me, and I have to sort of learn as I go. And that, of course, also delays the patent review and revision and so forth. Okay. Now, thirdly, for this particular patent, which is a game patent, why it took so long compared to, say, internet telephony or other things? Really is because although it's a game, and game, as you see, that when play the game as like a card game, a tile game, and the simple gadgets. But I wrote a patent with the intention that this is a highly technical in a interactive television broadcasting environment. Okay. Now, 11 years later, now, actually this environment is very, very feasible. We can have an interactive game in the broadcasting mode. Okay. At those days, 11 years ago, when I wrote the patent, tried to claim and describe the interactive operation of a game in an electronic, computerized, and broadcasting facility, I guess got the patent office in a very defensive mode, because those patent examiners that specialize in games of a card game, board game, and dice game, and so on, just not quite used to the language. When you talk about servers, you talk about interface, you talk about subroutines and how these things work, and in terms of networks and so on. Anyway, now I got this patent finally. Okay. And for my audience, particularly some of the audience known this Scramble game for 10 years or more, would appreciate that I have been really offering this game as a voluntary sort of service to schools, libraries, so on, as well as this show. Of course, it's a public show, as a voluntary program. I always like to bring this game to people because I believe it's very, very interesting, exciting, and it's a very good game for people's health, brain health. In fact, I would like to tell you this patent in a little more detail, and this whole show, this particular episode, I would like to just devote it to this particular patent. Now, but first, the patent name is called Word Scramble Games for Stimulating Brain and Physical Health. As you can see, when I submitted the patent application, my primary goal was stimulating brain and physical health. Although patent usually is a intellectual property, is an asset that you could really make profit out of it and so forth. We probably will do that, but at least in my mind at that time, I am really more interested in helping people's brain and physical health. All right, now let me then read you this abstract of this patent, how the patent abstract is. Okay, a word game system for playing multiple word games, and its corresponding play methods are disclosed. Okay, so this patent is a system and methods. The game system and the multiple word games are based on the word scramble process. For some of you audience that play the game, you know what scramble process means. That means you take letters and scramble them, make words, and make words longer, 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 and challenge yourself and challenge your opponents. You steal from each other. Okay, that's so-called scramble process. Okay. Now, this sentence is unfinished because there is further description. Are all based on the word scramble process, constantly and dynamically scrambling the playing pieces to form words by all the players all the time. Okay, that's again interesting, and we just find that everybody can play at the same time. So the scrambling process is, free for you to use, and use your brain to do that at the same time with every player. That's why it makes it very exciting. Okay. Now, hence, extremely stimulating and entertaining. And that's the sentence. All right. Next, the game system and its a specific set of playing pieces with proper ranking distribution, value point assignments, mass function selections, and the incorporation of wild playing pieces support a host of brain-stimulating games, including Scramble Word, Scramble Poker, and Scramble Mahjong. These word games are playable in English and other languages, and playable as board, computer, broadcasting, as well as boardless games. So that's the abstract. From this abstract, I think you can get some idea that this patent is trying to get a fairly broad coverage, include multiple games, multiple ways of playing the game. All right. Now, perhaps we could actually look at the patent pages. For example, the first page here is this. Usually, it's the standard format when the patent office prints out. It gives the inventor and so forth, references, so forth, and then the abstract, and then there's a key figure. They usually pick a figure that is representative of the patent or a introductory of the patent and so on at the bottom. That's the first page. Okay. Now, at this figure, it basically shows a sort of like a board actually, and include all the components that sometimes needed for playing games. And because the patent is claiming for multiple games can be played, therefore the components may or may not have to be used all in the same time, and some components may be used for some games. So it consists of a number of things. And for example, it shows a deck of cards or dice or bag of tiles and some regulation or instruction cards and so forth. Now, and the circle here, the 4 pieces, and shows some kind of a chip holders or tile holders. And as you can play, when I read to you before, the Scramble Mahjong, a Mahjong game, some people know, it's those tiles that are pile up in front of you and then play. And we have the so-called Scramble Mahjong. All right, that's sort of the patent description in a very simplified manner. Now, when we played Scramble Word Games on this show, we actually did introduce many of these games, some by passing, some are actually played in the studio. For example, Scramble Poker. I think I remember the Scramble Poker itself is not just one game. You can play Scramble Texas Hold'em, you can play Scramble Straight Poker, and so forth, right? Now, these games, when we're playing it, we of course explain to people how it's done. Again, to give you a quick idea how these poker games can be made into a word game. The principle we follow is this. We try to use the same rules and procedures that people play a game like poker. But we are changing the poker cards, which is usually people are familiar with ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 9, up to 1, and 4 suits, into scramble cards, which is the letters. That's A, B, C, D, E, F, X, Y, Z. And as I described, these either cards or tiles are alphabets, okay, are made with some special functions that are added to it, like value points and the mathematic function added to the cards or the tiles, so that when you scramble, make words, you can score a word points for a particular word you made. Now, if you understood this scrambling process and you understood how these mathematic functions work, you can determine a word point, which then can be used to judge whether you are winning or losing, comparing to another word and so forth, right? So based on that, Scramble Poker in the, say, Texas Hold'em, which is a 5-card game, you have 2 cards in your hand, you have community cards come up, you can pick 3 out of 5 with your 2 to form some kind of a suit. But in the Scramble Poker, we can do is 2 cards in your hand, 3 in the community, or even 5 in the community. You can make 5-letter word or a 7-letter word. So everybody would have a chance to do that. So again, it's similar to the poker procedure, the rules, but the essence of playing is playing word game. And you are challenging your brains to make words, to scramble your cards with the cards that are available to make the longest word and highest score word, depending on those mathematic functions that are added to the tile and cards. Okay, so that explains why Scramble Poker is mentioned in this particular pattern. Okay, now what about Mahjong? Mahjong game is a very ancient game in Chinese, invented. Typically is 136 to 144 pieces, okay? And people will then shovel this and pile up into 4 sort of square rows of these tiles, and then each person begin to take by following some dice order and having, let's say, 13 tiles in front of you. Each person has 13 tiles, and you are supposed to make a pattern that considered as a winning pattern, and then you can declare who means you made it. Now, this process is very interesting because lots of people playing. Some people even addicted to it. And the pattern turns out to be fairly simple in concept, but very intrigued in terms of playing and winning, because the probability functions involved are very, very complex. Okay, why? Okay, the pattern is simple because you are supposed to make 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. That's 14 tiles and win. Now the 2 has to be a pair, whatever pair of a particular symbol. As you know, the Mahjong game regularly, it has 3 suits That's, the stick, okay, and the coin or circle, right? And then the number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is to 9. These 3 suits each, okay, from 1 to 9, 1 stick, 2 sticks, 3 stick, up to 9 sticks, or 1 coin, 2 coins, up to 9 coins, or 1 10,000 as a unit, 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, up to 9 units of numbers. It's 3 suits, and each type of a number or a symbol has 4 pieces. So you got 4 times 9, 36. 4 times 9, 36. 4 times 9, 36. Okay, that's total 108. And then there's other things, they call it 中发白 as a symbol. Again, 4 pieces each. And then you have 4 winds. That's east, west, south, north. That's 4 each. That's 16. So 16 plus 12, that's 28. 28 and 108 is 136. It turns out, of course, if you played Scramble Word Game with me, and if you have purchased or owned a deck of Scramble words, we have 136 cards or tiles. So, from number point of view, from shoveling, dealing, could be exactly played like Mahjong. Except now, the pattern they are playing is 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. Now, the invention comes in here, very interesting. Instead of that fixed pattern, we have much more patterns to offer. Okay? Let's see whether I can actually show you in the pattern somewhere as part of the claim. Okay? Now, instead of one fixed pattern, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, which is 14 cards, 1 pair, 3 of a kind, 3 of a kind, 3 of a kind, or 3 in sequence, so on. That's what the Mahjong is doing. We can play 2, 3, 4, 5, which add up to 14, or 2, 4, 4, 4, add up to 14, or 2, 4, 4, 7. Or, not to the fourth, 2, 2, 4, 6, 2, 3, 3, 6, 2, 2, 5, 5, and so on, up to, this is a total of 21 different patterns. That is, for playing this 14-card Mahjong, you can define 21 different patterns to make. Now, obviously, making 2, 3, 4, 5 is easy compared to, let's say, you have to make 2, 3, 9. What does that mean? 2 in Mahjong is a pair, but here in our word game, that's 2-letter word. 3 is 3-letter word. 9 is 9-letter word. Obviously, it's harder to make a 9-letter word compared to you are going to make 2, 3, 4, 5, a shorter words. So when you have been dealt with these cards and you are playing, and by exchanging so on to form words, the shorter words is easier and longer words harder. Therefore, these pattern define the difficulties of your achievement. So when you play Scramble Mahjong, actually it involves far more stimulation in your brains, even though the Oriental Mahjong game is already very, very stimulating game. Okay? So that's just Mahjong. Okay? And in the pattern we also has a claim on a game called Scramble Bingo, which is not even mentioned in the abstract, because the abstract just say multiple games. We only cite 2 as an example. But the bingo game, again, by the name bingo, which is very commonly known. It's a bingo card game. You try to match numbers and make a straight line or a pattern, okay, on a card. We are doing the same, following the same procedure as the ordinary bingo game, except the bingo cards are created to allow you to make words. We put A, E, I, O, U as vowels plus a wild scrambled in the sequence to put in the diagonal line. So to define the cards with the vowel as certain line, certain column, which means when the other bingo cards come up, which is the letters, you are trying to make words containing a particular vowels in a row, forming a row and column or some pattern, okay? I think if you play bingo enough, and you're probably smart enough to make that extension. Oh yeah, we can make word games out of this bingo card. So that's another thing in there, okay? Now, these games, as I said, we did demonstrate and played on the in our TV show. And now with our patent is issued, we are now certainly much more willing to get into more games